you have to stick to your guns. You have to find something that you can do that maybe other people couldn't do. And even if that seems different or doesn't fit into people's expectations, that's what's going to distinguish it if you can do it successfully. For me, everything I did to do with the camera, to do with editing, was useful experience and stuff that paid off when I came to actually make features. And really everything you do, you learn from, in terms of any time you're shooting something, a short film, particularly short film. When you try to write the script for a short film, it's very difficult to write a short film. I think in some ways it's harder than for a feature, to have a complete idea in just a few minutes and have a beginning, a middle, and an end, have an appropriate conclusion. So you learn a lot about narrative structure doing shorter films. You're always learning about, how to balance the pragmatic requirements, the race against time, using the equipment you've got in a short space of time to sort of get something that you can use. It's all useful experience. When you're starting out particularly, you have to play to your strengths. You have to do something that really excites you, and whatever's different about that. And in the case of following the non-linear structure was a somewhat unusual choice. But it's those things that are the strength of the project. It's the things that you can bring to what you're doing or bring to the filmmaking craft that maybe not everybody else is doing, maybe not everybody else can do or has thought to do. That's what's going to distinguish the thing. So it might seem in some ways more difficult, or seem like something that would make the project more difficult to sell when it's finished, what have you. But for me, I think the answer was definitely to try to play to my strengths and the things that I personally was passionate about. I think working in films today, it's an era where people tend to watch films more than once, even if they don't like them. You'll see it in the cinema on its first release, perhaps, and then you'll see it on, cable television, or television you'll watch it on an airplane or in a hotel room or something, or it winds up eventually on regular TV. And so I think my generation of filmmakers understood really there's a responsibility to try and make something that has layers, something that has more to it the second time you see it, or some different aspect to it. And I chose to take the path of incorporating that desire for a layered approach into the narrative itself, into the story, if you like. And so I've made films that have some ambiguity to them or some layering to them narratively, so that if you see them a second time, you're going to watch them in a slightly different way. That was my approach. There are other filmmakers who approach it from a purely visual point of view, where they would just create very dense visuals that would sustain multiple viewings because you'd sort of see more in the frame. I've been greatly influenced by filmmakers of the past, hugely. I always point to George Lucas's first Star Wars film as a seminal influence on me. It was the first film that I remember that really just opened up the possibilities of what you could do with movies. Ridley Scott has always been a tremendous influence on me. I've loved the worlds he's created, the textured quality of those things. Terrence Malick is a huge influence, and Stanley Kubrick is a filmmaker that I've always greatly admired, although he's one that's difficult to try and imitate or learn too much from specifically, but as an inspiration, just as a great genius of cinema. And then more recently, specific to Dunkirk, I think, the cinema of Alfred Hitchcock, Clouseau, filmmakers working in the suspense genre were very important to me. I've also been very influenced by silent filmmakers. Those visions, those ideas of what movies could do before dialogue came in, before contemporary narrative structures sort of came in. I find going back to that older form of storytelling in movies to be very inspiring. I think really the only useful advice I ever got in terms of, trying to figure out your way into the film business, the film industry, is to get yourself a script and hang on to it. It's that idea, that screenplay, that concept, whatever that's going to be, that's so important. And you have to stick to your guns. You have to find something that you can do that maybe other people couldn't do. And even if that seems different or doesn't fit into people's expectations, that's what's going to distinguish it if you can do it successfully. So I think it's really about sticking to your guns and, doing something you passionately believe in rather than trying to appeal to some desire that you imagine other people have for what they want to see in a film. I think you have to be true to your own passion and your own sense of what excites you as a storyteller.